Alrighty.
Hey everybody, how's it going? I hope everybody had a nice holiday break. And if you were working, or I get that. I've done that before. So I hope however you celebrate, you had a nice time. Because I've done those too. All right, so let's get into it. Because last week was Thanksgiving, I figure I'd kind of do those kinds of this week in the NFL. So it won't really be a week, but I just felt it would be something good to cover. So November 17th, 1869, it was the official first Thanksgiving game that you could think of, even though it was in professional football. So November 17th, 1869, Philadelphia's Evening Telegraph newspaper posted the following message. A football match between 22 players of the Young America Cricket Club and the Germantown Cricket Club will take place on Thanksgiving Day at 12:30 p.m. on the grounds of the Germantown Club. So it wasn't like a main staple, but hey, that's when we kind of started moving football into that Thanksgiving tradition. So Thanksgiving Day football itself goes back to more high school and college because everything always starts there, right? Before it goes to the majors, everything always started really in college football. And it started kind of fading away in college, although you still have your your tradition that happens. The Thanksgiving tradition began back in 1876. Now this is where we go a little bit deeper, when the Intercollegiate Football Association began hosting their championship game on the holiday. But the tradition didn't pick up steam until 1880s, when the association moved the end of year game to New York. The very first Thanksgiving contest occurred just 6 years after the inception of the holiday, but it is still alive today in the NFL in two franchise cities. Of course, everybody knows Detroit and Dallas. However, Detroit is the one that's been doing it the longest. The Detroit Lions have played at home on Thanksgiving year every year since 1934, except when the games were paused between 1939 to 1944, because I don't know if you know this, but World War II was going on during that time period. So, of course, there were no Thanksgiving football games happening during that time period. The annual holiday tradition expanded to add a home game for Dallas Cowboys in the 1960s. Beginning in 1968, Dallas has only missed playing on the holiday in 1975 and 1977. But again, they're the staple, right? It's always Detroit. It's always Dallas. However, when it comes to Thanksgiving Day football NFL style, again, most of them think of the Lions. And this is why it started in 1934. It was their first year in Detroit after a local radio executive, George A. Richards, purchased who they were known as the Portsmouth Spartans. Okay, so that's where Detroit kind of started. And then they moved the team, the Spartans, from Ohio to Detroit. So the Spartans were actually members of the NFL really briefly from 1930 to 1933. But that's when they moved into Detroit, and they've been playing football at Thanksgiving ever since. Also, the only team that hasn't played a Thanksgiving game, because all of them has had a scheduled Thanksgiving game, are the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're the only team that's never played a Thanksgiving game. All right, some more kind of Thanksgiving stuff going on, not just the how it started. On November 22, 1944, at Brick Stadium, Detroit, Michigan, the fans of Cleveland Rams had plenty to be thankful for on that day when Jim Benton, the of the dependable Cleveland Rams. I know, right? It's weird when you hear how often the Rams moved around, but they were the Cleveland Rams. Their tight end gained a NFL record 303 yards against Detroit Lions during that Thanksgiving Day game. The mark of 303 yards remained an NFL record for 40 years and was tested in 1950 by Cloyce Box of the Lions in 1950, who went to 302 yards in that game. Then it wasn't until 1985 season when the record was shattered by Stephon Page of the Kansas City Chiefs in 1985 with 309 yards. And then we move on to 1989 with Flipper Anderson of the LA, that time the Rams, right? Because the Rams moved around a bit. They chalked up a remarkable 336 yards. So there you go, a Thanksgiving Day game. Then there's another game called the Bounty Game. This was in 1989, Philly at Dallas. The story started earlier in the season when the Eagles coach Buddy Ryan cut his punter, Luis Zendejas. And basically, a lot of unkind words were said and exchanged during an exit interview. Zendejas later signed with the Cowboys and would meet his old team on Thanksgiving in 1989. Reports were saying that Ryan and other coaches met with their linebacker Jesse Small during the week leading up to this Thanksgiving Day, and they basically said, to go after Zendejas. So there were rumors saying that bounties, that's called the Bounty Game, that bounties were placed on these players and that they basically wanted them taken out of the game. And so, again, these are our rumors, but it's still called the Bounty Game for a reason, because he did take out their punter in the third quarter. So Zendejas was taken out after a punt in the third quarter by their linebacker, Jesse Small. And so that's when a lot of those rumors continued to take place. And then after that game, Cowboys head coach Jimmy Johnson and, Ryan were not exchanging pleasantries after that game, because people are insisting that Coach Buddy Ryan, put a bounty during that game against Zendejas and other players, including at the time quarterback Troy Aikman. So anyway, just putting that out there. Then Turkey Day 1998, the infamous OT coin toss. So I don't know if you guys remember this, but basically at the Steelers game, at the Lions OT coin toss game, the Jerome Bettis went out for overtime, and being the visitor got the call to do the toss. And everyone says that when he supposedly called tails, okay, the referee at this time was Phil Luckett. He flipped the coin, and Bettis was heard saying tails. While the coin flipped through the air, Luckett reached to retrieve the coin, and he announced that Bettis had called heads. And so a lot of people really upset about that, because then the Lions won the toss, and the Steelers were like, no way. There were players on the sideline saying no. There were arguments. They were like, there's no way. He actually didn't call heads. He called tails. And so because of that, now there was a change to that, because the Lions did end up winning that game. This incident changed the coin toss at all levels of football to have the captain call the heads or tails before the coin is flipped. Then the ref will verbally confirm to all the witnesses that they're agreeing to it. That's why it takes a while now, right? That's why you're like, oh, why are they doing that? Because of this. Because there was an argument saying, no, they didn't call that. And that's why now you will have to wait until he literally asks everyone that's standing around going, what did you hear? What did you hear? Before doing the coin toss. So that's where that came from. And of course, the most infamous one of all that has become the highlight of the NFL blooper reel, the Mark Sanchez butt fumble. It happened on Turkey Day 2012. That is when the infamous butt fumble occurred. It was Thanksgiving Day 2012. I'm so sorry, Mark Sanchez. That will forever live in football infamy. But that is
Mark Sanchez don't eat no more butt roast after that.
That is a butt fumble happened. All right, happened on Turkey Day.
I put it in the chat, but Sanchez was one of the announcers on my game on Sunday.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, so there's your butt fumble. It happened on Turkey Day 2012.
Well, I thought, wasn't there a game earlier this year where something similar happened, that Sanchez was calling the game, and like the quarterback ran into his center, and like they made the joke about the butt fumble, and Sanchez just kind of laughed about it. But
yeah.
it's pretty funny.
Man.
You have to admit, it's still funny.
That's when it happened. And then I wanted to take a moment, and I know I'm pivoting, but I have to recognize that the Washington Commanders honored the late Sean Taylor yesterday because it marked the 16-year anniversary of his death.
Oh, it's been 16 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was yesterday, 16 years ago. Sadly, as we know, Sean Taylor passed away on November 27th, 2007 due to injuries caused from a gunshot. He was only 24. CBS did play a touching video featuring Taylor's daughter, where she reflected on memories of her dad and what it's like not having him around. Taylor was the number 5 overall pick in the 2004 NFL draft. He'd accomplished a lot in his football career despite an early death. Star safety for the Miami Hurricanes of the early 2000s. Taylor won a BCS national championship in 2001 before being named a unanimous All-American selection in 2003. And even though he wasn't in the NFL very long because of this tragedy, he was already making an impact. And God knows where he would have been, how far he could have gone. He went to have immediate success in the NFL, tallying 4 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and 76 total tackles as a rookie. During his short NFL career, Taylor played in 55 games while posting 302 tackles, total tackles, 2 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery, 12 receptions, and 41 passes defended. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler and was named second-team All-Pro in 2007 after his death. And so I wanted to do the Turkey Day stuff because, it just happened. But I didn't want to skip this day in NFL history without recognizing, Sean Taylor. And so
I was living in the DC area when that happened, and it was almost it was almost like a president had been assassinated. Like everything stopped. Like that was all, everybody shifted. Nobody talked about anything else the rest of the day but Sean Taylor. And this was on every single sports channel. It was all over ESPN. And having lived in that area, it's amazing. I was in that area for so long. Sean and I never met until this. Right. Yeah. I mean, at the point they were still the Redskins. The Skins fans were just distraught. It was almost like Michael Jackson. Wait a minute. 16 years ago. 16 years ago, that would have been 2007.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This was it was
2009.
Yeah, it was the equivalent of for football fans, for Washington Redskins fans, that was the equivalent of the day that Michael Jackson died.
Yeah.
And I'm not even exaggerating when I say that.
No, I'm sure you're not. It was I remember everybody was pretty much, even everyone in the NFL was broken up by that, just being a young man and being shot like that and just dying, like you said, dying from those injuries. But as always, thank you, Delilah, of course, for that. I always enjoy the This Week in NFL History because it just gives me more things for my trivia knowledge. Whenever I go to a trivia night, I try to hope that there's a sports category and that it's something that I can use from what you said. So I always try to pay attention to that because I'm the king of useless knowledge. That's all I have in my head. So